Hello, you beautiful creatures.
Welcome to Frass Happens, a podcast where we teach you shit about insects. I'm your host, Casey.
And I'm your host, Katie. For today's episode, I'm going to take you all on a journey under the sea.
I forgot the song.
I left room for you to sing and everything.
I know. Under the sea.
Under the sea. Specifically, into the incredible world of marine pollinators. Did you know that there were little critters pollinating in the ocean?
Nope.
Neither did anybody else until about 10 years ago.
Wild.
I know, right?
Also, since we still haven't quite figured out how to tame our enthusiasm and record shorter episodes, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into our submersible and head on down into the ocean.
But unlike those millionaires, we don't plan on imploding.
Yay! I don't think they planned on it either, but
No, that's true, actually. They definitely did not. But hopefully we don't implode.
That's always the goal with a podcast. No implosions.
No implosions, please. Not today.
All right, my dear friend, take it away.
Let's do it. Before we take this deep dive, literally, into the newly discovered universe of marine biotic pollination, let's start by better acquainting ourselves with the process of pollination in general. In our last episode, Casey gave us all a great refresher on the specifics of terrestrial biotic pollination, which we all learned is carried out by a variety of animals, but mostly insects. But this isn't the only type of pollination. There are three main routes of sexual plant reproduction: zoophily, animal pollination; anemophily, wind pollination; and hydrophily, aquatic pollination. Out of the three, we are probably most familiar with zoophily, or animal pollination. As we learned last time, around 85% of plants benefit from animal pollination. These plants tend to have brightly colored petals, large floral displays, and a nectar reward to entice critters to interact with their reproductive organs. How do you entice people to interact with your reproductive organs?
That's a different type of podcast, Katie.
I know, sorry. Hey, plant sex is wild, okay?
Also, a lot of those beautifully colored flowers don't look like that to the insects or other animals that pollinate them. It is so cool to look at flowers under ultraviolet light, UV light, because a lot of these flowers have these nectar guides, which is only visible under UV, which is great because bees and some other insects, their vision is different from ours in that it's kind of shifted. So we see red, green, and blue, but bees, for example, cannot see red. So instead, they're like green, blue, and ultraviolet.
So cool. Oh, it's really fun to look at plants under ultraviolet light because you're like, oh, this is actually what they see.
Yeah, so many secrets we had no idea.
So these flowers are very much the seductresses of the plant world. The pollen of these plants is also really sticky, so it can attach itself to the bodies of its floral visitors and unknowingly engage them in a plant pollinator menage a trois. We're just really getting into plant sex right now. It's a wild, wild world. So
Did you know that your allergies to pollen is actually you being allergic to plant sperm?
Oh my god. Ew. Not to shame anyone's kink.
Next time you sneeze, it's because of plant sperm.
Oh my god. Gross. Well, these plants, which include forbs, flowering trees, and shrubs, and cacti, produce a comparatively small amount of pollen since they don't have to rely on chance as much as wind and aquatic pollinated plants. Wind pollinated plants, in contrast, produce a ton of pollen, which I'm sure many of you, especially those with allergies, as we just mentioned, are intimately familiar with. And even more intimately when you find out it's plant sperm. Even though only 10% or so of plants benefit from wind pollination, mainly conifers, oaks, and grasses, the impact of these plants is pretty noticeable due to the amount of pollen they produce. Especially in the spring when trees start dumping pollen on your cars and into your nostrils.
Also, to dispel a little bit of a myth, a lot of people will blame the male trees because there's like this whole thing that a lot of cities will plant just male trees. But actually, only about 6% of plants are dioecious, where there's a male plant and then a female plant. Willows are an example of that. While, yes, cities do tend to plant male trees at times because the female trees are going to produce fruit, which can fall onto sidewalks and then rot and make everything pretty gnarly out there. The reason why your allergies are so bad is basically due to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
These warm seasons are lasting longer, they're beginning earlier, and the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is changing. So there are a couple different studies out there that show that trees and other plants can produce a lot more pollen with higher CO2 levels. And so as we're seeing this increase in CO2, these plants are producing more pollen, which is going to impact your allergies. So it's not necessarily your city's choices that are impacting your allergies. It's climate change, and so we really need to be shifting to greener energy rather than advocating for more female trees on the sidewalks.
Yeah, and the Black Forager has a great video about this on their Instagram, so I'll post that reel to our description because it's a good listen and dispels this myth that I actually believed up until very recently.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, so the more you know.
Also, another myth to dispel right here is your fall allergies. A lot of people also have seasonal allergies in the fall, and they blame it on goldenrod, these beautiful golden yellow flowers that we see all over the place. But goldenrod actually has really sticky pollen, and it's mostly pollinated by insects and other animals. Ragweed, on the other hand, is the cause of your fall seasonal allergies because that is a wind-pollinated plant. So stop blaming goldenrod for your fall allergies and start blaming ragweed.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I correct people on that all the time. They're like, oh, the goldenrod is so bad this year. And I'm like, no, it's not.
The goldenrod is so great this year.
Goldenrod can do no wrong.
Goldenrod supports so many specialist bees.
And so many wasps. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's my favorite wasp watching plant, for sure.
Ooh, interesting. Mine is mountain mint.
Oh, that's also a great one. They get a lot of like the great blacks and the great goldens.
Yeah, friggin' everything. Yeah, if you want
Seriously.
diversity, especially wasp diversity, go ahead and picnic them on mountain mint.
What were we saying about how we are bad at taming our enthusiasm, Casey?
All right, back to you.
I love you.
Love you.
But back to wind pollination. So the flowers of wind-pollinated plants tend to be super small with no bright colors or nectar because, unlike zoophilus flowers, they're not trying to impress anyone. Similarly, hydrophilus flowers, which rely on water to transport their pollen, are also small and unassuming. While the majority of aquatic plants reproduce through asexual mechanisms, such as fragmentation, so literally breaking apart into little clones of themselves, which is really quick and easy.
I wish I could do that.
I know, right? That would just make things so much easier. I went through pregnancy. My God, I could have just broken off a finger and been like, I'm good.
Grow.
And grow. But a few, like us, do roll the dice with sexual reproduction. These aquatically pollinated plants only make up about 2% of plants, and those are mostly seagrasses. Like wind-pollinated plants, they also produce a lot of pollen, but this pollen is heavier than water, so the grains don't just float to the top of the water. And they're also protected by a thick, gelatinous, waterproof mucilage. Pollen jelly.
This sounds so gross.
Yum.
I hate it so much.
So delicious. And before the plant people come for me, yes, there is something called surface pollination, during which the pollen grains do float to the top of the water, and that is technically also hydrophily, but for the purpose of the episode, I'm only focusing on plants that practice underwater hydrophily, or true hydrophily.
Ooh.
I know. So, for a long time, we thought that all submerged hydrophilous plants relied solely on water movement for dispersing their genetic material. But a little over a decade ago, new research emerged that blew this assumption out of the water. I'm full of the water puns today,
Nice.
if you can't tell.
Gold star.
Thank you. And I'm particularly excited to talk about it because these researchers followed one of my favorite research formats, and that's, hey, I saw something weird. Do you think we can make it happen again? It's my
Honestly,
favorite type of research to read about.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are so many projects that come from that of like, I observed this thing, now I have questions.
Exactly. It's just like such a pure form of curiosity, and it just gets me very excited.
When I was doing my master's working with organic methods of varroa mite treatment, we had quite a few honeybee hives that we were taking care of for this research. And another grad student was growing a bunch of pitcher plants in these tubs of water in one of the open hoop houses. And at the base of all of the pitcher plants was moss. And I kept noticing that the honeybees that we were keeping for my research were visiting the moss and drinking from them. And so this sparked an entire other project that I am still working on to this day, years and years later, looking at honeybees drinking water from moss. And this was all just because I noticed this by happenstance.
That's so cool, Casey. I didn't know that was the inspiration for that research. That's awesome.
Yeah, my PI and I kept watching them and going, I wonder why they're using moss when there's tubs of water right here. But there's something about it, and still don't know why.
Well, I can't wait to read the paper when it comes out.
One day.
One day. So this research was headed by senior researcher Dr. Brigitte van Tussenbroek out of Dr. Vivian Solis-Weiss's lab. And I'm so sorry if I mispronounced either of your names. You're both awesome. Feel free to come for me. Which is the Ecology and Biodiversity of Marine Invertebrates lab at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. These badass ladies have spent years investigating the faunal communities of turtle grass, or Thalacia testudinum. So this is a tropical seagrass found in the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. And just a quick aside here, seagrass meadows are really important habitats. You probably have heard about them as being a big conservation focus. Mm-hmm. They support a wide diversity of marine life, including endangered species like sea turtles, which is actually how turtle grass got its common name, from the sea turtles that graze on these turtle grass meadows. They look like little sea cows. It's really cute. And these grasses also provide food and shelter for many species, and also act as nursery habitats for several species of shrimp, scallop, and fish.
Katie.
Yeah.
Do you know if this is also what manatees feed on?
I don't know if they do.
I want to look it up.
Please hold for research.
Turtle grass.
Aw, cute.
Yeah, because they're in estuaries. So one of the really big issues with manatees right now is that the plants that they feed on are declining rapidly due to pesticide runoff into the waters of like Florida especially. Mm-hmm. And so there are videos of like manatees coming up out of the water to eat grass on the ground, and that's like really sad because that's basically due to starvation. Yeah, so the pesticide runoff is literally killing a lot of these aquatic and marine plants that the manatees are relying on, and turtle grass is one of them. Sorry, quick aside.
No, I mean, you touch on something that I wasn't necessarily going to get into, but is a big issue. So Some of the big things that are affecting the seagrass meadows are, as you already mentioned, pollution, also dredging and boating, climate change. All of these things are affecting our seagrass meadows, which, as I've already described, is really important for supporting biodiversity. But these meadows are also great climate change mitigators since they're huge carbon sinks, and they also have a large network of roots, of rhizome roots, that help to stabilize the soil and prevent erosion during these larger storms that we're getting due to climate change.
Oh, they're so important.
I know. And luckily, because they're so important, there are a lot of groups out there that are working to protect them. So that's good news. They're kind of a high topic in a lot of conservation conversations. So they're getting good attention, but, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to restore and protect these really important habitats. Speaking of all of this, let's submerge ourselves into the secret miniature world of marine meadows.
Glub, glub,
So
glub, glub, glub.
glub, 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 glub,
Blub, 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 blub.
So when this work on turtlegrass fauna began in 2009, it was already pretty well known that small marine invertebrate critters like to visit different species of seagrass, both to hide from predators and to feed on the leaf tissue of the grasses, as well as the algal communities growing on those leaves. So lots to eat, lots of places to hide. There was also some evidence of marine invertebrates interfering with seagrass reproduction because they really liked eating the pollen and the seeds of these grasses. Because this is a flowering seagrass. They produce small greenish-white flowers that bloom for a very short amount of time at night. It was really hard, actually, to find pictures of the flowers and figure out the actual size. All I could kind of get was, they're small and they're greenish-white. And it is because they're so ephemeral and they are so short-lived. They open and then they're done.
Wow. These look wild, though.
Mm-hmm. Who'd have thunk?
If I was a fish, I would want to eat it.
Yum, yum. But at the time that this research took place, the abundance, diversity, and behavior of marine invertebrates that specifically visit turtlegrass was less understood. So these researchers were very interested to see who was visiting this species of seagrass and what those critters were doing. To do this, members of the lab observed the visitors of turtlegrass in the Puerto Morelos Reef Lagoon in Mexico during the grass's bloom period from May to June. And they performed these observations in 2009, 2011, and 2012. And what non-biologists may not realize is that a lot of ecological research is just going outside and looking at stuff. And that's something I know, Casey, you and I are very familiar with, and is basically what these researchers did. So during their observations, they ended up documenting 57 species of crustaceans and 13 species of annelids, which are segmented worms, visiting those turtlegrass flowers. And 15 of those crustacean species were new records for the region, which is super exciting. And Casey, I actually thought of you in all of your bee surveys when I read that, of going out and looking at stuff usually means you find new stuff.
Yeah, especially if you're the first person in an area to look at things. For example, when we've been working on this bee checklist for the state of Rhode Island, we are finding the Pontidaria, or pickerel weed specialist, everywhere that there's pickerel weed, basically, throughout the state. But we also have the first state record from only 2 or 3 years ago, because literally just no one was surveying pickerel weed for bees.
Yeah, exactly.
At least, not in this state. So it had never been recorded in Rhode Island, but it seemingly has really healthy populations and is on the flowers where you would expect them to be. So,
I love that. Yay!
But that's so cool. Do you know, on a side note, do you have to scuba to look at this, or can they snorkeling just kind of it's that deep?
Oh, that's a really great question.
I'm curious if it's can you kind of snorkel and observe, or do they have to be scuba certified and
I think they have to be
going
scuba
way
certified. Deep. I feel like I remember that from the video that I watched about it. Let me see, because there's a really cool YouTube video, actually, of some of their observations that they made, which I'm also going to link. But yeah, it shows them going down and looking at stuff.
Oh my god, you get to go on a journey with them?
Oh, yeah.
That's so fun.
So when I say crustaceans and worms, I'm talking about tiny crustaceans and worms.
Mm.
These aren't big ol' crabs and earthworms. The majority of crustaceans they observed were less than 1 millimeter in length, though they range from about 0.6 to 8 millimeters. So tiny.
That's so small.
They're really little. And while the researchers were observing these tiny marine invertebrates, one really interesting thing that they noticed was that more of the crustaceans visited male flowers bearing pollen than male flowers that weren't, and that many of them were foraging on this pollen. And similarly to how pollen sticks to the bodies of bees and other animals that visit terrestrial flowers, the researchers observed that the pollen embedded in that mucilage, that sticky pollen jelly that I mentioned before, it was attaching itself to the invertebrate's body parts after visiting those male flowers.
Whoa.
So, I know. So this is what clued in the researchers that biotic pollination might be happening. And this was really, really exciting because seagrasses are clonal plants, meaning that they mostly reproduce asexually. So until this research came out, the flowers of this plant seemed likely of little importance for the reproduction of turtle grass, besides like some chance hydrophyly in there for occasional genetic variation. And just like the idea that marine biotic pollination was even a thing was brand new information. So
yeah, that's
this
like
was
groundbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
And remember, these observations took place in like 2012. So
wait,
not
so
long
you're
ago.
telling me I can be a marine biologist and a pollinator ecologist?
Oh my gosh, Casey, your dreams are coming true. It's happening.
They're coming true. I can do it.
You can do it. But before the researchers could confirm that, yes, zoophilia is definitely happening, they had to answer 4 important questions. And Casey, I don't know about you, but like I knew about this, but I didn't know the specific 4 questions you have to answer before you can say, yes, pollination is definitely happening.
No, I have no idea what they are.
Right? When this was brought up in the paper, I was like, ooh, do I know that? I'm a pollination ecologist. I feel like I should know that. So here are the 4 questions that you have to answer before you can determine that pollination is actually happening. 1, both male and female organs are visited. 2, the visitor carries pollen. 3, the visitor transfers pollen between the male and female sexual organs. And 4, pollen deposition by the visitor results in successful fertilization, estimated as pollen germination on the stigmas, pollen tube growth, or seed set.
That's a lot.
So, like,
yeah.
we all knew this.
But
yeah, we know this, but we, like, didn't know it.
also, like, doing this underwater.
Right? Oh, you wait. We're going to dig right into their experimental setup.
Oh
I'm
my
so
god.
excited.
I'm stoked. I can't wait.
But I think that this like talk about, what actually makes a pollinator is really important because as we've learned in other episodes, just because an animal visits a flower, that visit might not result in fertilization. Honeybees on buzz-pollinated flowers. So the researchers tested these questions with a few different experimental setups. And I'm going to skip over some of the details of these setups for time's sake. So if you've read the paper and I leave out your favorite part, I'm really sorry. The paper is linked in the episode description so you can get all of the juicy details there. But to start off, the researchers wanted to simply observe the visitation behavior of these marine invertebrates. They also wanted to confirm the deposition of pollen onto the stigmas, which are the female reproductive parts of the flower. To do this, they trapped small, mostly crustacean larvae, about 500 individuals per liter, and placed them in a 3-liter aquarium. And for context, that's a lot of invertebrates in a very small amount of space, which we're going to come back to later.
I bet it looks like little sprinkles in the water.
Right? It's like thick with invertebrates.
Oh.
Right? And the tanks also included both male and female turtlegrass flowers because these plants are dioecious. As Casey mentioned earlier, this just means that there are male and female plants as opposed to monoecious plants, which have both male and female flowers on the same plant. So, the more you know.
Cool.
And these aquariums had no water flow because they wanted to make sure that the visitations that they observed weren't just from water movement. They then filmed the invertebrates in the dark because these are night blooming flowers, and later noted the number of visits that the critters made to the male and female flowers. And they also counted the number of pollen grains on the female flowers at the beginning of the experiment and after 15 minutes. So that was to measure pollen deposition, what pollen was being carried to the female flowers. And what they found was, yes, both the male and female flowers were visited. And they were also able to determine that, yes, these visitors were carrying pollen. When they removed the invertebrates from the aquarium after the experiment, they found that several specimens had grains of pollen attached to their bodies. The crustaceans tended to get pollen stuck in their antenna, mouth parts, legs, or abdomen, while the annelids had pollen wedged into their segments or caught up in their bristles. And there are pictures of this in the paper, which I'm pretty sure is open access. So go check it out. It's really cute.
Oh my goodness. Also, I have a question. Okay, so like when we look at pollen deposition with terrestrial plants, right? The stigma, which is the female part where pollen gets deposited, it's sticky, and you can remember that because sticky stigma. When we teach about flower anatomy, that's how I tell people to remember it. Sticky stigma. Does this flower also have a stigma? Is it sticky, or is it like the gelatinous pollen blob that just kind of the gelatinous part can get stuck to it? How does that work?
So the stigma is sticky. You're actually getting into a piece of the paper that I was just going to skip over, but
it's
interesting, so we can talk about it. Absolutely. So they were able to, in another experiment that had water movement, see that the water movement helps to move the visitors to the stigmas, where then they get stuck because the stigma is sticky.
That's so
and then
crazy.
As they wiggle away, the pollen gets stuck.
Ah.
So
right,
you're
beautiful.
right, they are sticky.
Woohoo!
Great question.
Thank you.
So the researchers also found that, yes, pollination deposition was occurring. The female flowers had significantly more pollen deposited on their stigmas following visitation from the fauna in the aquarium. So that answers our first three questions in terms of, is pollination actually happening? So it's looking really good so far. So this just leaves one last question. Does pollen deposition by a floral visitor result in the successful fertilization of turtlegrass? And to test this, the researchers set up their experiment in a more natural setting because, as I mentioned earlier, their first experiment was in a really condensed environment, lots of invertebrates in a very small space. This is a great setup for observing behavior, but not so great for replicating more natural scenarios. For this fertilization experiment, they set up a giant 100-liter tank filled with circulated seawater. Male and female flowers were placed in the tank and distanced apart in a way that would correspond to the distances that you'd find in the wild. Invertebrates were also added at a much lower density, closer to 30 to 90 individuals per liter, compared to those initial aquarium experiments. So far less. The setup was left overnight, and in the morning, the female flowers were removed and placed in a separate tank so the researchers could observe the growth of pollen tubes. And for those who don't know, pollen tubes are the tubular growths that are produced by pollen when a seed begins to grow or germinates. Basically, it just tells you it worked. And again, they found that, yes, the turtlegrass pollen transported by marine invertebrates resulted in successful pollination. So, with this final question answered, the researchers were able to demonstrate that marine invertebrates are pollinators of turtlegrass, which is the first ever documented instance of marine zoophily.
Hell yeah. Wow.
In 2016, which was like yesterday.
See, as much as we think we know everything, there are still so many new things that we have yet to learn and find, and this is why science can be so fucking fun.
Right?
That is
Exactly.
so cool. That whole lab must have been absolutely ecstatic. Like,
Yeah.
okay, imagine being like an undergrad in that lab and you just like,
Mm-hmm.
we're working on this project, and then it became this gigantic project, and like you get to be one of the people who helped like find this super cool thing. Ah, that's so
Right?
awesome. And this is
And
all from an
that's
observation.
exactly. And I was just going to say, like, that's the thing about observational research is like, there's so much observational research where you then have to write a paper that says, we found nothing.
Yeah.
And that's like the majority. But then you get something like this where it's like, actually, we found something brand new. And oh, it's just, I love being a scientist. So, yeah, this really cracked open a whole new world in the marine biology community. Suddenly, folks were thinking, well, if this plant is both zoophilous and hydrophilous, are others as well? It also opened up a lot of questions about plant pollinator relationships from an evolutionary standpoint. Until now, we had been pretty sure that biotic pollination evolved terrestrially. So,
Hmm.
mostly with beetles and flies who pollinated late Jurassic plants such as ginkgos 150 million years ago.
Yeah. And like Betos.
Cheeto
Those
beetles.
beetos. Cheeto beetos. The like beetles and magnolia flowers, right? Was that one of the first
Yeah,
documented
and cycads. Yeah, I think
pollinators?
with Forbes, wasn't it like it was like water lilies and magnolias, those like really big sort of chewy petaled flowers.
I'd eat one.
Right? I want to. You can eat magnolias. They taste like ginger.
Eat your magnolias. Or actually, I think the first pollinators were thrips, which makes sense because also bees likely evolved from thrips hunting wasps, where they were hunting thrips that were pollinating plants, and then they actually evolved to like eat pollen. So
Oh my
anyway,
gosh, so
thrips.
cool.
They're not all bad.
They're not all bad.
But yeah, I think you were right though. It was the ginkgos, thrips and ginkgos.
Yeah, exactly. All those like early plants and plant pollinator relationships. But now we're thinking, could pollination have started in the ocean first? In 2022, new research emerged from the Roscoff Biological Station in Brittany, France, showing that marine animals, in this case the isopod Idotea balthica, mediate the fertilization of a red algae species, Gracilaria gracilis. I love it when it's like the same. Gracilaria gracilis. While not technically pollination, since algae is not a plant and does not produce pollen, fun fact, this relationship is still an example of an animal carrying male gametes from one organism to another, resulting in fertilization. So, very similar mechanics to pollination. And the origin of red algae is estimated to be between 817 million and 1049 million years ago, which was long before plants moved ashore, which may mean that animal mediated fertilization and animal pollination is way older than we originally anticipated.
Okay, so like this is so cool, but it also kind of makes me sad because I feel
Oh.
like so much of life originated from the water, and it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool to think of pollination being like this thing that like this mechanism that evolved from animals and plants that were terrestrial. And it's almost
Yeah.
sad to be like, "Hey, come
Like,
on, give
that's a
us that one
land
thing."
thing.
That's a land thing. Like, what the hell?
Well, it's nuts. And I mean, we're going to kind of get into this in a second, but like all insects evolved from crustaceans. So it kind of makes sense that it's crustaceans that are the pollinators in this case. Also annelids,
Right.
but mostly crustaceans.
But yeah, but like, when plants came ashore, like, there weren't these flowers, right? Like,
Right.
angiosperms evolved later,
Mm-hmm.
because it was first mosses and
Mm-hmm.
then ferns. And this is where, like, you kind of get bits happening, because, like, mosses, for example, they don't have flowers, they don't have any vascular tissue.
Mm-hmm.
But then ferns don't have flowers still, but they do have vascular tissue.
It's like that
Then you
extra
get
rung on the evolutionary
gymnosperms.
ladder.
Right, right. And then you have your gymnosperms, your pines, and things of that nature, and then your angiosperms, flowering plants. And so it's just really cool. Like, I don't know, you would think it's such a terrestrial thing. This is wild. I'm having a blast.
Right? And who knows? It could have been something that, like, just evolved again. Like, we see this all the time in, the natural world. We have bats that can fly, but also insects that can fly, but also birds that can fly. Apparently, flight is pretty important to terrestrial critters.
A quick little thing about flight that always annoyed me, because
Mm-hmm.
I grew up going to church, was like, someone I remember, their argument against evolution was that if evolution was real, then we would have wings, or like fish would have wings. And I'm like, no, because
Mm-mm.
wings are like arms. Like, you don't have both. Obviously insects are a bit different, but like,
Yeah.
like birds and bats, like, that's arms, right? So this pisses me off, because dragons shouldn't ever exist. Only,
Yes.
what is it, wyverns, right? Or
Wyverns,
wyverns?
yeah.
Wyverns or wyverns? Right, because those are the, like, dragon-like creatures where they have hind legs, and then their forelegs are their wings. But
Mm-hmm.
dragons technically have 4 legs and then also a set of wings. So that would never happen.
I love that this segued into the evolution of dragons. Incredible.
Yeah. Sorry, I really have been enjoying reading some fantasy books. Also, fun fact, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones and all of that, those aren't dragons. Those are wyverns.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he did that on purpose because evolutionarily dragons wouldn't exist. And so he wanted to make it as, like, scientific of an animal as possible, which is a wyvern, not a dragon.
What excellent world building. Good job, man.
Anyway, back to you, Katie.
Oh my gosh. We could do a whole episode on this.
Yeah. Welcome to our entomology themed podcast where we talk about dragons.
Perfect. So I only have one final note before I wrap up this episode, so we're coming to the end here. Basically, I wanted to address that some of you might be asking right now, Katie, aren't insects supposed to be the most effective pollinators? Why aren't they the ones who are carrying out marine pollination? And the answer is because there aren't really any insects in the ocean. While there are many aquatic insects that thrive in freshwater, there are very few that can survive in the ocean. There are quite a few that do well on ocean shores and in the intertidal zone, but actual open ocean insects are really rare. There's actually only one insect genus known to live in the open ocean, and that's Halobates or Halobates, or water striders, which is a type of true bug. There are about 5 species that can survive on the surface of open ocean water, and they have some pretty specific adaptations to do so. For example, to lay their eggs, they attach their egg masses onto floating objects, such as cuttlebone or feathers that might be floating there in the open water.
Oh my god, that's so very, like, the Prince of Egypt esque.
Right? Sending your child down
in a basket down
basket.
the river.
Well, super depressing side note, it's actually expected that these species are going to become more abundant in coming years because, do you have any guesses, Casey? Think depressing, think ocean.
I was gonna say, because, like, trash.
That's literally it. Yeah, so...
I was gonna say birds are dying, so there's gonna be more feathers, and I was like, nah, that's not it. Yeah, oh, wow, due to trash.
Yeah,
Huh.
There's a higher abundance of floating plastic in the ocean, so that means they have more surfaces to lay their eggs on.
Do some of these insects, like, thrive in the garbage patches then in the oceans?
Yeah, they've been noticing that they've been really taking advantage of these, of more floating plastic.
Wow. Anyway, we're gonna get some cool fucking marine insects living in the garbage patches. That's alright.
I guess so. Water striders are the only ones happy about this.
Wait, and sorry, how many species are there? There's 5 species of marine insects?
Yeah, so there's only 5 species within this genus, even, because there are lots of species within the genus that like freshwater. But the main reason there are no insects in the ocean is because those niches are already filled by crustaceans. Crustaceans carry out the ecosystem roles in marine environments that insects have taken on in terrestrial environments, such as herbivory, parasitism, and decomposition. So it's really no surprise that we can now add pollination to that list as well. Also, insects spent a really long time evolving to live on land and finally made it out during the Cambrian explosion. Now they have pesky adaptations like wings that don't allow for a full life cycle underwater. Of these adaptations, it was thought until recently that one of the main anatomical constraints that kept insects from living underwater was an air-filled tracheal respiratory system that collapses at great depths. So when they try and go deep in the water, they just kind of get crushed and they can't breathe. However, this hypothesis was challenged by research published earlier this year, so in 2026, and it was led by soon-to-be Dr. Evan McKenzie out of the Matthews Lab at University of British Columbia. So yeah, this was PhD research, and I think he won a lot of awards for it. So yay, Evan!
Super cool. Good for you.
Yay! His work demonstrated that the aquatic larvae of the lakefly Caborus edulis have modified their tracheal systems to regulate their buoyancy, allowing them to dive to depths of over 200 meters deep. And
holy shit.
I know, the only other critters that can kind of do this and have a similar system are, what are they called?
Blobfish.
Nautilus fish. Nautilus. Yeah, nautilus.
Nautiluses?
Nautiluses.
That's not a fish.
It's not a fish. I said fish, but that's not right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Do they think it's like the exoskeleton that can protect them? Like what?
So it's like a special modification that actually increases in efficacy with each instar of the larvae. So as they get bigger, they actually get better at protecting their tracheal system so they can dive deeper and deeper. And they actually were finding in this paper that they probably could dive deeper than they do. They just haven't recorded it yet.
Damn, because that's like intense for people to dive. So that's like, you probably have to be in a submersible for that.
Oh, probably. Or you'd have to do the thing where you go down really fast but like come up really slow so you don't get like, what is it, the spins or the
decompression sickness or the bends.
The bends, that's what it is. So you don't get the bends. Gross.
with a DS, not a Z, not a Benz like the car.
And it's also thought that this is a fairly recent adaptation, given the geological history of the area where these flies are found. So who knows? Maybe during the next big evolutionary explosion, insects will make a bid for those niches and we'll have marine insect pollinators. Who knows?
One way to find out.
I know, right? Go look at stuff.
Well, I was gonna be like, we need the next big bang, is what I was getting to.
Oh, God. I'm not ready. So that's my little story for today. I hope you all enjoyed learning about the wild world of marine biotic pollination. I don't know about you guys, but I'm so excited to see what new research comes out in this arena in the coming years, because this is all just a super new concept for us, and there are so many avenues for new discovery.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, the world just opened up, and there's probably so much now to learn about this, and thank you for opening our world up a little bit bigger. You know, this was so cool and just so interesting to learn about. Like, it's new science. It's super cool, really funky. The science is so fun. It's just, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it was like this whole miniature world that was happening for years and years and years and years that we had no idea was happening. Just all these little processes going on. And then one day someone noticed something and said, I want to learn more. And now we know.
So cool.
Yay, science!
The exploration of new knowledge. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for that episode. That was so interesting. Our world just gets so much bigger. Absolutely a blast.
Aw, thanks. I had so much fun researching it for you.
And thank you all for joining us again today on our journey under the sea. We are absolutely loving this fantastic community that is being built here. And we love getting your feedback. So thank you for all of the engagement on our social media posts and our podcast episodes. We love to hear from you. So please send us messages, leave comments.
It makes us so happy. Please do it.
As a reminder, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Frass Happens Podcast. And you can check out our website at frasshappenspodcast.com. That website is also where you can, drumroll please, purchase stickers! Because we officially have merch. We have 4 amazing and beautiful Frass Happens stickers designed by my very talented friend, Alyssa. Our first batch just went out the other day, and we are just so appreciative of your support. It has been amazing.
Woohoo! Yeah, we are just so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much. And speaking of support, a super special shout out. Ooh, alliteration. A super special shout out. And thank you to Sarah, who bought us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you so much, Sarah. We love you.
Thank you.
And for anyone else interested in supporting us in a monetary capacity, you can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/FrassHappensPodcast. We'd love to give you a shout out on the podcast as well.
Yeah! Thank you again for listening, and don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and rate our podcast on your favorite listening platforms. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Frass Happens.
Okay, love you, bye!
Be nice to bugs!